So, Varsha, you were talking about job description and then basically looking at different channels to source these resumes. And then after that, what happens after that? Presumably there's an interview and...
Yeah, then you come to the next step of the process, which is where, organizations interview profiles that have been shortlisted. So the typical process flow looks like this, where you have the hiring managers or the business, what we've called it out here. They review the shortlisted CVs saying that, okay, these are profiles that really meet what my expectations are. And they select certain candidates for either an interview or an assessment. In some of the organizations, even today, I mean, in spite of the fact that you might have been working somewhere, you are required to go through some kind of either a written test or an assessment, it's called. It could be an aptitude assessment, it could be a technical assessment. And the HR typically, or the recruitment, organizes the logistics around these technical rounds of interviews as well as assessments. Post which an HR interview happens, to try and understand what is it that the individual wants to do. Is the individual actually a fit with the organization? Then the HR and the hiring manager create a short list of candidates. And from that pool of, people they think meet the technical criteria as well as the cultural fit, they make an offer saying that, okay, this is the candidate we like from this list of, say, 20 people that we have interviewed, and we would like to make an offer to this person. The candidate selection is done and a job offer is rolled out. The job offer consists of what is the designation of the person, what is the role that he or she will be performing, what is the location in which he or she will be in the role, in the position, typically in what function or department, and how much will the person get paid. These form the parts of the job offer typically.
So we went back, Varsha, and checked. Looks like at the end of week 3, Madhuri had gone through 102 profiles that Ritesh had shared, and he had shortlisted 7 profiles for the project leader position, right, and another 25 for the team member position. So now what do Madhuri and Ritesh do? Just following that process that you just described?
Correct. So Madhuri and Ritesh will say, okay, 102 profiles have been gone through. We need to organize now interviews for 32 people. Obviously, Madhuri and Ritesh may not have the time to sit through interviews for 32 people. Typically, every interview takes an hour. Assessments might take about half an hour to 1 hour per candidate. So to administer a written test, Ritesh says that, okay, I have 2 people in my team. They will call, these 25 team member positions together. They will administer a written test. And till the time, Madhuri, you choose 2 or 3 people from your team who can actually do a technical interview for this particular position, so that you know that the person you are getting can actually perform these tasks. So there are 2 rounds of assessment, technical and HR. They create panels for each set of interviews, and they create, and Ritesh creates, the logistics for ensuring that the written tests are also administered.
Okay. And what is the result of these tests and interviews?
So typically, whenever a position is created, we saw that in the job description, right? There was a set of skills, and there was a set of skills that was absolutely required, and those that could be had. When they are going through, these large number of candidates' profiles, they ask the interviewing panel, and typically the interviewing panel is trained for a little bit in terms of what are the kind of questions to ask and how to fill out a template. So Ritesh's team will create a template based on that job description, saying that these are the 5 skills, these are the 5 competencies that I want. Please rate this person on how you think this person is likely to do in terms of a certain skill. So for example, what are those, is he very proficient in in Java? Is he very proficient with certain platforms, certain languages? So those competencies are created, and the interviewers typically fill this template and send it back to Ritesh to create a repository saying that these candidates, this is how they have performed per competency or per skill set.
And based on this feedback, then we select people.
Correct. So it's basically like what, the way we get a report card or a grade card in that sense. So
right.
So Madhuri and Ritesh will look, especially Madhuri will look at those grade cards and say that, okay, from the 7 people that you have looked at for the project leader position, I think only this one candidate has all the 5 skills to a minimum requirement that I want. Everybody has a pass criteria, right? So there's a pass criterion. If the rating scale is from 1 to 5, sometimes the pass criterion usually is, a minimum of a rating of 4 or 5. Anything below that is considered, maybe that this profile may not be able to do the role that Madhuri wants them to do. So in our particular case, what Madhuri has gone ahead and done is that for the project leader, she has found one candidate who's suitable, right? Meets all the criteria. So he's got pass marks in all the competencies. He's got good feedback from both the technical panel as well as the interview panel. And for the team members, there are 7 candidates which seem to have made the made the grade for.
So if this one person in the project leader position you offer and the person doesn't join, you're in trouble, huh?
Absolutely. So it is. So there are various scenarios that happen. One is you make an offer and the person doesn't accept the offer. The second is you make the offer, the person accepts that offer, and then later on, since he's anyway in the hiring process, he gets a better offer from somebody else, or maybe his own organization makes him a counter offer, and then he rejects the offer. So in all these cases, what organizations typically have to do is to also select backup candidates. And especially at project leader and above positions, your hiring times are much higher. So even though you have liked only one candidate, Madhuri would have thought whether there is any other candidate that I can use as a backup profile, as somebody else that I can share share this offer to.
But in this case, there's only one person.
There's only one person that meets. So in case this person rejects, then it's back to square one for both.
Square one. Start again. Source more resumes and start again. Okay.
Absolutely, yes.
Okay.
And that would also happen if Madhuri did not like any of the candidates, right?
Absolutely. So if there was no candidate saying that, in the interviews, they just didn't make it, then the questions would be asked of Ritesh, saying, how did you source these kind of profiles, or what really went wrong? So is the criteria of shortlisting the profiles, is it correct or not? Or does the profiling shortlist have to be much more stringent? So those would be the questions that would get asked if there is not a single candidate who makes the grade. Right? So that again, that data will go and get revisited, saying what was the quality of candidates, what was the quality of shortlisting.
So GD, it looks like in the team member position, even though we needed only 5 people, 7 candidates have made the cutoff. Okay.
Yeah.
So in this case, I think we can keep 2 candidates as backup, maybe.
Correct. It's a little better. I think it looks like a little better situation.
Yeah. Or what Ritesh could do, and sometimes they do that, is that they roll out all the 7 offers and tell people to join. Some people will join, 5 people will join in this month, and maybe 2 people can join in the next month, because I think totally Madhuri needs 10 team members.
Oh, right. Anyway, they need 12. Yeah. Correct.
So the joining can be staggered. Organizations also do this sometimes for freshers, sometimes, very rarely. So you stagger the offering, you stagger the onboarding based on when is it that you really need it. need the,
So there are,
need the person.
okay. So the typical statistics is what? I mean, if you make 7 offers, how many people will join typically?
In the IT industry, the rate of rejection is almost 1/3. So there's a very high probability that the offer that you have made to an individual, he will typically take that and go shopping elsewhere. It's called going shopping.
Okay.
So you ask for offers from other organizations. You put pressure on them as part of negotiation as a candidate, saying, I've already got this offer. I would need better terms on my fixed compensation. I would need better terms on a joining bonus. Can you extend some other benefits in terms of medical insurance? Or he might go back to his own organization and ask them to make a counter offer. And some organizations do a counter offer in case the person is very critical to a project, but otherwise, no.
Okay. So 7, so if you're saying 1/3, so out of 7, 2 will, I mean, the probability is that 2 will reject and so only 5 will join.
Yes, there's a very high probability that, one will reject, one may not join. That does happen.
Okay.
Quite frequently.
All right.
And so actually it makes sense to go and make all the 7 offers.
All the 7 offers. Yeah. Yeah.
That's what it looks like.
Looks like it. Yeah. Okay.
Okay. So then we come to the next part, which is also, So here you can see, right? So this is the scenario that we were talking about, where the project leader candidate, where you had only one person, rejects the offer, and 2 other team members also reject the offer, because the salary doesn't meet their requirements, joining date doesn't work out for them, or the location of the work that they want is not what is required, or it just might be simply that they've got a better offer from some other organization. So this is exactly typically, what we were discussing. This is what happened in this particular case too. And then, of course, Ritesh and Madhuri have to go back and make sure that their project leader sourcing and shortlisting, interviewing is that much more better in terms of efficiency.
So, Varsha, is there something Ritesh and Madhuri can do to get an assessment of whether the person is likely to join, or there is nothing, it's just luck?
No. So the likelihood of a person joining is gauged by the technical panel to a certain extent, but also by the HR. So we were talking about the HR interview, right? In HR interview, what typically organizations look at is, okay, this person is motivated by this kind of an experience, and that's what they try and collect. This also happens in the technical interview. This also happens in the HR interview. They try and meet the expectations of the candidate. Now, this could be in terms of designation. So I might be a software engineer. The only reason I want to change my organization is because I want a team leader position. I want to make a sudden jump, just for example. So am I able to meet, so is the organization able to meet my requirements of being able to give me that kind of designation? Or, or the best offer that I can get is that of a senior software engineer. What is it that works? And these are the kind of cues where an assessment can be made as to how risky an offer is. Now, if you ask me, is data gathered formally on this risk? Typically, no. It only gets reflected in your efficiency pipeline. But if they do sense a risk, then Madhuri and Ritesh know that they have to look at other things. And this is something that they would discuss in their weekly update. There is no specific indicator that says, oh, I don't think I'll be able to make it.
So this is a little bit of a gut feel sort of decision making, huh?
Yes, this is the little bit of art.
Okay. So this GV is not something that we can look at from a data perspective.
Not from a dashboard perspective, according to me.
Not from.
But it does get reviewed every week, because this is actually in a sense a lead indicator that tells Madhuri and Ritesh how well the process is going. whether they are comfortable, not comfortable as yet.
Okay.
The data, the data you gather is, so this is more like a data that tells you about how well your process of recruitment is going. Whereas most of the data you gathered is in terms of resumes, it's basically raw data, right? Resumes and evaluation of the candidates. Data that is relevant to the evaluation of candidates. But the process data itself is not something that you're capturing. I mean, so there's nothing much to do.
So organizations do capture one, one aspect of how easy was the process. Once you ask a candidate to come over for an interview, you do gather his or her perception about, feedback, what were the challenges. Yeah. So that feedback is collected. And people do, but it's a long-term process in terms of trying to change anything in the recruitment process. Yeah. It might not be easily done, but what cannot, or what is not gauged on a very concrete fashion is, if the offer has been rolled out, what is the probability that the person will pick it up and will join? That can only be analyzed by a lag indicator saying, okay, this is what our track record shows for the last 6 months, 1 year, or for this particular position. This is what it shows.
This is a little different, GV, from all the other cases we looked at, because there we were mostly looking at reasonably hard data, right? I think this is a little bit of a probabilistic sort of.
Correct.
And
yes. So while you have software, hardware, it's very difficult to put a number to the wetware, as they call it. So,
wetware. Okay.
Yeah. So wetware always has a little bit of, a margin for error when you make a decision for that.
I see.
Right. Okay. So maybe worthwhile, Varsha, if you could explain to us what are the detailed steps in this offer making, because this process seems to be a little, fuzzy and uncertain, right? So maybe if you can just walk us through the details of how the offer is made, that would be good.
Sure. So once, say, we've decided that, okay, this is the best candidate for the project manager role. From the interview template, Ritesh knows that the expectation of this particular individual is to get 18 lakhs salary fixed in a year. He would be happy with being with the designation project leader, and he is looking forward to having a team of at least 4 or 5 people under him. Okay, so Ritesh knows this basis the HR interview that is done. He has to go back and check with HR and with Madhuri whether this will create any disparity with the employees that you already have. So you could have, really great performing individuals who have not yet made the project leader grade. Will that be a clash? Will there be people from the same batch that Ritesh hires, but because he is hiring them from outside, he ends up paying them more, giving them a higher designation, which sometimes causes a little bit of heartburn with employees that are already there in the organization. To prevent that, most HR teams create certain kind of saying that, okay, if you have a position at this level, this is a basket of designations that you can offer the person. If you have a person that you're hiring at this particular level, and all of this is from the indent, right? So the indent has already been approved, saying that you can hire a person at this particular grade. So at that particular grade, you can offer him a salary anywhere between 15 lakhs to 22 lakhs, depending on what the experience that the person gets. I'm giving a very broad range. Usually the ranges could be even shorter at a lower level. So all of that is taken into consideration. HR is spoken to, saying that, okay, this is what we are planning to offer. It contains, as I said, the offer letter contains details of designation, details of what the benefits will be, and of course, details of compensation. So what is the salary the person will receive? And this offer letter, the broad aspects, again, you get a quick approval from maybe Madhuri. If there are any exceptions, then Vidya would have to approve. And if there are, as I said, any exceptions, they will do a case by case study saying, does this make sense or not? Is there some way we can get this particular offer to fit in our existing organizational structure? They create a certain an Excel sheet which Ritesh will create and tell the person saying that this is what we are willing to offer you. Are you interested? In the Excel sheet, what typically Ritesh will do is offer the candidate a breakup of that 18 lakhs figure, saying that 18 lakhs figure, so much of your money will go to Provident Fund. So much of your money will go as retirals. This is what you will get in hand. This is what we will allocate towards, say, HR, medical. This is where you will be able to save taxes. So these are the kind of benefits that Ritesh will talk to the candidate. Ritesh will also make a pitch to the candidate saying that apart from what you see on this offer letter, these are the benefits that the organization offers. So we give you a medical insurance of 5 lakhs covering all your family. We allow you a parental insurance top up as required, because these are some of the things that employees do look at when they're joining an organization. Once this is shared, once the Excel sheet is shared, and the candidate says, yes, I'm fine with this breakup, I'm fine with this take home, but I want a joining bonus, and all those discussions are done, Ritesh will then actually roll out the offer letter, which will then get signed by the individual saying that, yes, I'm joining, and they will take a decision as to what will be the onboarding date. So typically the team member will say, oh, I'm with this organization, our notice period is 3 months. Then there'll be a certain negotiation on the notice period. Once all of that is agreed to, the onboarding date is decided. Typically, it takes 2 months for a person to, hand over his existing responsibilities and join another organization. So once that is done, then all that remains is for Ritesh to hand over this particular, successful recruitment to the HR, who will pick this on, make sure that the person is onboarded, and of course, the hiring manager, Madhuri, who will keep in touch with the candidate to make sure that the candidate is not losing interest in the organization. A lot of things can happen in 2 months, right? So that again is the way the probability that we had discussed earlier is managed, by keeping in constant touch with the candidate, making sure the person is engaged, and making sure he's still or she's still interested in joining the organization. So that is the cell that is required at that point of time.
This is a lot of work for the HR. Okay. I mean, I thought it was just about interviewing, but it looks like you have to spend a lot of effort in.
Yeah, there are a lot of transactional activities.
Transactional activities. It's only getting the correct offer out to the candidate involves a negotiation process. I did not realize. I mean, with each candidate, one by one, you have to negotiate the offer letter.
Absolutely. So, and each aspect of the offer letter, right?
And then you have to keep in touch with the employee, with the prospective person, till the person comes on board. Okay.
So then typically, either Ritesh's team will conduct the onboarding. There is one whole set of documents that is required by organizations to make sure that the onboarding is as smooth as possible. Typically, organizations, to a greater degree of detail or lesser degree of detail, ask for educational qualification certificates, ask for prior experience certificates, ask for relieving. So you get a relieving letter from your existing organization saying that, yes, Varsha worked in this organization for 5 years as a project leader. She was here from, say, 1st Jan 1995 to 31st December 2000. And this was her designation. Typically, that's a relieving letter that's given by organizations. So Ritesh would share the contract letter with the pre-boarding document checklist. So this is called the pre-boarding document. Typically, you will also ask for an identity proof from the person, as well as for a PAN card, right? So these are some of the requirements that an organization is required by the government to have in place before they do any transaction of salaries. So there is something called tax deducted at source, right? For which they will need the PAN, they will need the identity card, they might need certain bank details from you before they process the payroll, and all of that is taken care of in the pre-boarding documents. Since this is largely administrative, there'll be there'll be a junior HR person in Ritesh's team who will take care of all this and make sure that all the documents are fine. These documents are then sent in for a verification process. They will also arrange for relocation. So there are certain relocation benefits that are given in case somebody has to move cities, say from Bangalore to Mumbai or from Mumbai to Delhi. In terms of, 1 truck worth of goods can be transported, so that payment will be made. Some amount of rental advance might be given. So all of that is started. That process is started. The person is then, cleared for induction. There is a signing that happens on the first date. An identity card is given. A whole starting kit is given, which includes typically the system, laptop, an employee handbook, other branded material of the company so wishes to give. And then post that, the individual, the candidate who's now an employee, goes through a set of training sessions saying how do things work in this particular organization. So in tech enterprises, what is the appraisal process, when you get paid, how do you look for reimbursements, and that typically happens for anywhere between 15 days to 30 days, depending on how thorough the induction and the onboarding process. Employees also get to meet their future managers, future team leaders, as well as their team members during this induction process, and they try to make it as easy as possible for the person to get integrated into the system and then start performing. So that is the last step of the recruitment process, which is called induction and onboarding. This is where the handover happens from recruitment to HR and the recruiting manager.
Okay. So this sounds a little bit like taking admission to a college, no?
Like that, yeah. Looks like that, yeah.
Yeah. Because when we join a new college, also you have to submit mark lists, all those identity proof, everything.
Yes, yeah.
Only thing in this case, bank details, etc. A little more information is needed because they have to pay us a salary.
Yeah.
Yeah. So typically, the average time taken to fill pre-boarding documents checklist is about 6 to 8 hours. It takes almost a whole day.
One whole day. Oh, okay.
Yeah. So a lot of organizations have tried to see how it can become more efficient by allowing people to upload all these documents online. But it does take, just verifying these documents sometimes takes that much time.
Okay.
So a lot of paperwork, basically.
Lots of paperwork, lots of forms to be filled. You'll have to fill nominee forms for medical insurance. You'll have to fill PF, PF transfer forms. You would have to fill any other benefits that you're taking over, those kind of forms. So yeah, it's a very admin intensive process.
Okay.
Right.